named as a language you were going to talk about, correct?
Yeah.
And you were going to talk about why that language should be taught to people? Is that correct? Okay, so can you tell us about that, please? If you don't want to look at your notes, don't look at your notes. Just tell us about it. Can you tell me about it?
Over 100 years ago, a man was looking around his community and saw all of these different groups of people who were at conflict with each other because they weren't able to communicate with each other. And because of that, he decided to create a language called Esperanto. Esperanto is meant for international communication, and it's something that we really need to have in this world today, where we're getting closer and closer to each other, but we can't make that connection without being able to talk. And that's why it needs to be taught in schools worldwide. And not only does it facilitate this international communication, it can help put everyone on an equal playing field. And even if it didn't help with that, learning a language like Esperanto can help people to learn more languages later in their life. Now, we're already using a language that's being used for international communication, and that's English. But English puts non-native speakers at quite a disadvantage compared to people who've been using it throughout their entire lives. And it's inherently tied to European colonialism, which further creates that unequal divide. The English language itself is very complex. The grammar is not entirely consistent. The spelling is all weird. But that's something that Esperanto fixes. It is entirely consistent and very simple and easy to learn. And because everybody will be learning it as a second language, it will put people at that equal level of understanding instead of having people at a disadvantage. Because it was created and not naturally developed by a nation or something, it doesn't have all these ties to politics and history, and it really does serve as being neutral between different people. But that isn't to say that it has no culture of its own. Being around for over 100 years, it's just as naturally used by millions of people as any other language, and it has its own art and its own books and its own music. In fact, I write songs in Esperanto myself. For people to be able to talk to each other would be able to resolve conflicts more effectively than simply fighting. And in learning the language, you break that barrier of trying to learn a language for the first time. So when you're learning another language after that, you're like, oh, I already know how to learn a language. Learning a language as simple as this makes it much more easy and fun, and you really understand the way that language works. So you'd be able to learn other languages more easily and still be able to communicate with people from around the world. So,
do you want to conclude?
uh,
So what do you think we should do with all that?
So, I think that people should be thinking about what the world really needs to be able to be a more peaceful place. And to consider looking up Esperanto yourself and trying to learn a few phrases.